charges he faces, but the complicity the left and the media share with his rise. And what could possibly be controversial about President Trump posthumously awarding Elvis Presley the Medal of Freedom? Well, the Washington Post found a way, and wait till you hear how. And what happens when a doctor and a millennial who does vaping, they take on the latest FDA push for regulations on the e-cigarette market? That's a can't-miss debate later in the show. But first. Breaking news out of Florida tonight, an unprecedented statewide hand recount is currently underway following a 5-day machine recount of the more than 8 million votes cast in last week's election. Secretary of State Ken Detzner ordered hand recounts earlier today in the Senate race between current U.S. Senator Bill Nelson and his challenger, Republican Governor Rick Scott. And this isn't just in Broward and Palm Beach counties. The order gives canvassing boards in every single one of the Sunshine State's 67 counties 3 days to pour over thousands of ballots that were rejected by machines. For more on what's next, we go to Fox's Phil Keating live in beautiful Riviera Beach in Florida tonight. Phil.
Laura, same two Florida counties and new election issues once again. Palm Beach County, where we are, well, they missed the state's recount deadline, the only one of 67 counties to do so. And Broward County got their results in 2 minutes too late, meaning 5 long days of hard recount work down the electoral drain. That machine recount actually showed Republican Rick Scott statewide gaining in votes and his lead over the original results. Scott now leads Nelson by he leads by 0.15%. Hand counters will now go through all the problematic ballots, which had undervotes and overvotes, to see if that changes anything. Also, in the closely watched governor's race, the recount results stayed almost exactly the same, with Republican former Congressman Ron DeSantis leading Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum by 0.41%, still close, but avoiding a hand recount. While Broward County celebrated after midnight when it completed recounting the ballots, well, today, election staffers uploaded its results to the state at 3:02 p.m. They were due at 3 o'clock sharp, so the original numbers will be the ones made official. Not everybody was happy down there in Broward, and the words tonight of a staffer, quote, "I worked my ass off for nothing." Palm Beach County failed to make the recount deadline, period.
Well, I will explain it to say that I believe strongly that it wasn't not a human effort, it was mechanical. And so we're required to present a report to the Secretary of State, and that's exactly what I'm going to report.
And because of that, Senator Nelson has now filed a new lawsuit late this afternoon against Palm Beach County and the state. He wants all of Palm Beach County's ballots, the entirety of it, recounted by hand. This new hand count of these under and over votes due to the Secretary of State by Sunday. Laura?
All right, Phil, thanks so much. And today's order for a recount follows more evidence of potential dirty tricks by Democrats in Florida. First, the Naples News reporting earlier that Florida Democrats plan to use altered forms to fix mail ballots across the state after the imposed deadline. Now, these altered forms were reported to federal prosecutors so they could review the potential election fraud. And second, after U.S. Chief Judge Mark Walker ruled Thursday that voters should have until Saturday to correct signatures on the ballots, a win for Senator Nelson, Fox News learned that Karen D. Walker, the wife of the judge, has previously donated to Senator Bill Nelson's campaign. Shouldn't that have led to a recusal? Joining me now is Pete Dunbar, an election lawyer in Florida who's overseeing many of these recount efforts, and Harmeet Dillon, an attorney and RNC committeewoman. I want to get to the issue of Judge Walker in a moment. But, Pete, what can you tell us about these seeming dirty tricks from these Florida Dems with regard to these altered forms?
Well, Laura, nice to be with you tonight. We had been hearing rumors about this for the last couple of days. I think it has now taken the appropriate course of action so that it'll be looked into. I've been in the Florida political arena now for about 5 decades. This is the first time we've seen something quite like this, or the allegations quite like this, from either of the two state parties. It is a bit troubling, but it will be processed appropriately. I'll also say that after the governor-elect was confirmed today, after the machine recounts, the waters here in Florida are calming a bit.
Well, it's about time, but there's no reason this should be continue to happen in Florida, frankly, anywhere with modern technology. This shouldn't be that difficult if you follow rules from the beginning through the process. Harmeet, I want to play this from David Ehrenberg. He was on Aaron Burnett about this 2-minute supposed missing the deadline late deal. Let's watch.
In Broward County, what's amazing is that they finished the count 2 minutes late. They submitted the results 2 minutes late, so they will not be counted.
Yeah, and that, I mean, in that case, you know, I mean, I don't know, the law is the law, or do you let that in? I understand.
Well, you're not going to let it in, Harmeet, right, if it's going to help the Republicans.
In this case, it was almost 800 vote advantage for the governor. So that's why I think there's suspicion about it being an intentional missing of the deadline.
Now, Harmeet, when you keep hearing the refrain, oh, Republicans are saying voter fraud. There is no voter fraud. No voter fraud at all. This is just a process, Harmeet.
Right.
This is not. You're all raising a red flag for no reason. How should we speak about this, given these irregularities that have been reported and the people like Brenda Snipes, who's become the poster girl for this type of corruption?
Well, it is fraud. I mean, first of all, Rick, I think, politely referred to the fact that the Democratic Party, in conjunction with officials of the Democratic Party, actually sent out altered forms to several thousand voters in Broward County. I mean, it's actually statewide. They did so-called chasing effort, but they only sent them to Democratic registered voters. So they're only interested in correcting the signatures for Democrats, not for Republicans. And unfortunately, this judge, who seems to have a conflict, went ahead and extended that deadline. So that's organized. That isn't one-off. That isn't a mistake. That is thousands of ballots, thousands of forms going out with false information, deceiving voters about their right to correct their forms.
Now, Pete, what I'm concerned about is in this hand recount, this effort to discern the intent of the voter. So if the ballot is rejected by the machine because it was either, I guess, could it be an undervote? No, there was something on the ballot that was wrong. You spill your coffee on it. I don't know what it is. But if it's not read easily by the machine, this attempt to say, well, if you voted for DeSantis, you would have voted for Nelson. Or if you voted for the Democrat Agriculture Commission, how odd that you didn't vote for Nelson. This is the kind of thing that people look at and say, maybe people don't want to vote for these people. Maybe that's why they didn't vote. It's crazy.
Laura, I think you're right about that, and I think here's what happens. If they will look to examine, but it is possible for the machine to reject ballots that might have a smudge on them. If you mailed in your ballot and you happen to fold over one of those items, and it may not be the races that are in the close contest, the machine will kick that out and it needs to be examined. Now, the canvassing board process in Florida is pretty balanced and I think fair. It consists of a circuit judge or a judge, the supervisor of elections, a county commissioner. Both sides are allowed to be there and be present while the decision's being made, and if they want to object to it, they can. But here's the other interesting point for what it's worth. If you look at the volume, the universe of ballots that now are narrowed and what remains at issue, candidly, it's not going to change the results. And much like we saw in the governor's race, I would tell you that the results that were given on election night with the change, I think in the governor's race, after 8.2 million votes, the recount showed there was a 1-vote differential. And by the way, that went to the governor-elect. I think we're going to find the same process to be true, and that while there is this issue for all the legal ballots, when it's all said and done, we will have Governor Scott be senator-elect.
Concerned about. This is what I'm concerned about. And Harmeet, this is the last comment.
Yeah.
The Republicans always seem to be outflanked by lawyers on the ground. And the Democrats are always ready for this. Well, we're gonna do this. Rick Scott has his own money, and he has a lot of money in his campaign coffers. He was smart to take this right to the courts. But some of these other races across the country, the Republicans didn't take the same approach.
No, I would agree, Laura. We've been caught flat-footed in many races where lawyers on the ground and that kind of aggressive effort could have changed things. And, unfortunately, that didn't happen. So I hope we learn the lesson for 2020. We're really going to need to do that and have lawyers in every race. I think, actually, frankly, every congressional candidate needs to have a lawyer on speed dial.
And the rules have to be applied across the board. If you don't fill in your ballot right, guess what? It's not a vote that should count.
That's right.
This idea that every vote counts, no, only legal votes count. If you can't follow the rules and figure out how to fill in a bubble, sorry, no one should have to hold up a vote to the light, the ballot to the light, and figure out how you voted. It's crazy.
No, and the rules have to apply evenly to both sides.
Across the board. Thank you, Harmeet and Peter. By the way, there's another big race that still has not been called, the Georgia governor's race. Republican Brian Kemp has 55,000 vote lead on Democrat Stacey Abrams, but she refuses to concede, claiming racism. And she's claiming voter fraud. Trace Gallagher is live in our West Coast newsroom with that story tonight that he has been following. Trace.
Hi, Laura. The campaigns of both Republican Brian Kemp and Democrat Stacey Abrams are claiming victory after a federal judge issued what appears to be a split decision to the benefit of the Abrams campaign. The judge ruled that absentee ballots need to be reviewed and the ones previously rejected because of incorrect birth dates must be counted. Now, to the benefit of the Kemp campaign, the judge said absentee ballots with the wrong addresses and those who voted in the wrong county will not be counted. Now, to be clear, the Abrams campaign isn't hoping to pick up enough absentee votes to win the election. Instead, they're trying to extend the election. They believe by getting 17,759 votes, that would bring Brian Kemp below 50% and force a runoff on December 4th. The Kemp campaign calls that impossible, saying, quote, after all the theatrics, the math remains the same. Abrams lost and Brian Kemp won. The election is over. And in case the math doesn't add up, the Abrams camp is already on to Plan B, which is to accuse Kemp of wrongdoing, saying as Georgia's Secretary of State and Chief of Elections, he essentially cheated. Watch.
Unequivocally, that we believe Brian Kemp mismanaged this election to sway it in his favor.
Though the campaign offered no evidence, which has not stopped Democrats outside of Georgia from also using the S word. Here's Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown. Watch.
If Stacey Abrams doesn't win in Georgia, they stole it. It's clear. It's clear.
It's clear, but again, no evidence. And Hillary Clinton and New Jersey Senator Cory Booker also say, without evidence, the election was not fair. By the way, the deadline for all vote counts in Georgia is November 20. Expect more lawsuits to fly well before then. Laura.
All right, Trace, maybe we should just extend it all the way through the new year. Let's actually go all the way to 2020 and then 2022. Let's just never end this midterm election cycle. Trace, thanks so much for that report. And our next guest just wrote a terrific piece titled The Real Reason Stacey Abrams Won't Concede. Joining us now is someone who knows more than most about Georgia politics. He writes a lot about it. Founder of the Resurgent, Eric Erickson. Eric, it's great to have you here tonight. Now, you heard that report from Trace, and you've been following this race very closely. Why was this so ugly from the start? And then how did it get, and why is that at the place now where she's trying to force this recount? There's no way she's going to get there. But what's going on really here?
Well, you have to go back to 2014. Stacey Abrams made her claim as she could get elected by doing voter registration drives throughout the state, and she failed. She's got to explain to her donors and keep Democrats agitated. There's another race coming up in 2 years. She wants to run against Senator David Perdue there. So by keeping Democrats inflamed, she thinks she can move into a runoff in December where the Secretary of State's race isn't a runoff, keep Democrats going. But there's a key point here. All these Democrats are saying Brian Kemp stole the election. The Secretary of State in Georgia, under Georgia law, actually plays no role in the election other than making sure the ballots are uniform so we don't have Florida-style problems. The Secretary of State role doesn't become effective until after the election is over, and Kemp resigned before playing that role. Every problem the Democrats have highlighted are actually local elections officials, most of them in Democratic counties.
And Eric, from the beginning, they've been trying to push this narrative with Oprah and the big rollout with Oprah.
Right.
That if you don't, first of all, if you don't vote, then you're betraying your ancestors' past. That's number one. But number two, this idea that Brian Kemp, by cleaning up the voter rolls, which I believe by law he's obligated to do, that he is actively trying to suppress minority voting. Respond to that.
Right. And, you know, To some degree, there's a question of whether or not minority voters decided not to go vote because the Abrams campaign was telling them it's not going to count anyway. Kemp's going to steal it. So how many votes did she lose? But the Kemp campaign, the Secretary of State's required by law in odd-numbered years to clean voter rolls of voters who have not voted in 7 years, were contacted and did not reply. The Democrats are saying, though, there was a massive amount of votes this year taken off the rolls. That's true, but the Secretary of State in Georgia is prohibited from removing people from the rolls in election years. Those were local officials who removed people who either committed felonies, died, or were declared incompetent by courts of law. Those are the only people who've been removed from the rolls this year.
Now, so why is Sherrod Brown and Kamala Harris getting involved? I mean, it's Kamala Harris, she's running for president in 2020, so this is part of that effort, clearly. But why is Sherrod Brown? I'm not making that connection.
Because December 4th, there's going to be a Secretary of State runoff, and the Democrats have a chance of winning it. So they're trying to keep Democrats really inflamed and impassioned by this. Remember, this all goes back to a Democrat strategy after 2000 with Katherine Harris in Florida, where they decided the key to winning states was to win Secretaries of State races because the Secretaries of State presided over voter rolls. So they've been making these claims about Brian Kemp when really that's what the Democrats want to do. They want to win the Secretary of State's office in Georgia, thinking that will help the Democrat in 2020.
Well, her campaign manager actually mentioned the Secretary of State role today. Let's watch.
I would like to remind everybody that his last official act as Secretary of State was using that body as a taxpayer-funded arm of his campaign and issuing a press release that said, "I'm the victor." And then the next day, he's standing saying that he's governor-elect. We reject that.
Eric, I mean, I'm happy to have that loop play morning, noon, and night. That'd be really good for the Republican Party in Georgia. But your response to her?
Well, you know, the math doesn't add up for her. There are no more votes outstanding. All the counties have reviewed even the absentee ballots now, and there are no more votes. She fell 17,795 votes short of even getting into a runoff, let alone a recount. The votes aren't there. She can sue all she wants to try to keep Democrats focused on the runoff for Secretary of State, but she will never be governor of Georgia.
And this, again, is about more identity politics, trying to register more people to vote, and leading all the way to 2020. Eric, terrific piece. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And you won't want to miss this. Tonight's angle tackles the media and the Democrats' Michael Avenatti problem. The angle after this.
I guess MJ been released from custody. We're, of course, going to continue to follow the story tonight. There's even more breaking news this time in the Russia investigation, potentially big development as we wait for new moves from Special Counsel Mueller. That is next.
Wait. I missed that. Wait, that was like a drive-by mention. He's like, okay, can we move on to the next topic now? Please, go. Well, from Weinstein to Sharpton to Farrakhan and now to Avenatti, the Democrats have a pattern, don't they, of aligning themselves with seedy figures, even if it means betraying the Democrats' espoused values that would actually advance their cause. The Democrats are more than happy to sell out basic principles of decency and fairness in their efforts to take down Trump and, frankly, anyone connected to him. At least Avenatti was forthright in his intentions, though.
I believe that our party, the Democratic Party, must be a party that fights fire with fire. So I say, when they go low, we hit harder.
Wasn't that what the woman is saying, accusing him? But the Dems should have seen the Avenatti flameout coming a mile away. A guy who tried to cheat his law partner out of millions in fees, a guy who was evicted from his own offices, who was willing to cast his lot with a sad figure like Daniels, a guy who stooped even lower to peddle Julie Swetnick's false and, frankly, defamatory claims against Kavanaugh. Avenatti was an arrest waiting to happen. In fact, last month, Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Chuck Grassley made a criminal referral to both Avenatti and Swetnick for making false statements to Congress. And this was some guy, that the left seriously considered as a presidential contender for 2020. For months, Clinton alum Adam Parkomenko has been shuttling the lawyer Avenatti from Democratic Party event to Democratic Party event all over the country in order to familiarize Avenatti with the whole process of running for the presidency. And the Vermont Democratic Party actually canceled Avenatti's appearance this weekend following his arrest. Well, in a twist of fate, the man who urged us to believe the women making wild, decades-old allegations against Kavanaugh now has a change of perspective.
I have never struck a woman. I never will strike a woman. I have been an advocate for women's rights my entire career, and I'm going to continue to be an advocate. I am not going to be intimidated from stopping what I am doing.
I have a question. Can you advocate for women's rights behind bars? I guess they do have those desks set up in prison. How will Democrats and liberal women who embrace this would-be Trump slayer react now to this? He's innocent until proven guilty, and I said that last night. But will CNN give even a fraction of the airtime to his accuser as they did to his clients? Don't hold your breath. And that's the angle. When we return, reaction to my angle and a further examination of why the media so desperately wanted Avenatti to be their golden boy. And later, what happens when a millennial vaping fanatic faces off with a doctor warning against the practice? This can't miss debate later in the show.
Avenatti an apology. For the last couple of weeks, I've been saying enough already, Michael. I've seen you everywhere. What do you have left to say? I was wrong, brother. You have a lot to say. The Democrats could learn something from you. You are messing with Trump a lot more than they are.
Oh, why didn't we use that for the angle? That's the best one ever. Well, back now to tonight's angle, Avenatti's assault on Democrats' credibility. I laid out my case. Now, let's see what my panel thinks. Here with us is Wisconsin Republican Congressman Sean Duffy and attorney Scott Bolden. All right, Scott, let's start with you. Now, Avenatti was all about the women. You got to believe the women. The women. What does she have to gain? What do these women have to gain after Christine Blasey Ford got $1 million from GoFundMe? What does she have to gain? I think she had a lot to gain. Well, but what do we have to gain? These women. What would she have to gain by?
He's their lawyer, and
him?
He's advocating on their behalf, and he's articulate, he's telegenic, and he's fighting against
Trump. He has a heck of a right hook.
And no, that's not.
I'm joking. It's a joke. Come on.
No, because he's innocent until proven guilty. And with him and his clients, the women, he's got witnesses, he's got a complaining witness, and he's got corroboration. He's advocating for them.
He has a criminal referral, too, doesn't he?
Well, that's politically driven. The Republican chair of the Judiciary Committee referred it, and that's not going anywhere because his client had an affidavit that she signed. He didn't sign it.
So you think people should be able to accuse men with impunity?
She was mistaken, but you're going to take it a long way to say she lied. You're going to have to prove that, and that's hard in this country.
But aren't we still waiting for, like, Michael Avenatti's 2 witnesses he claims saw Brett Kavanaugh, Brett Kavanaugh put grain alcohol in a punch bowl? Why have witnesses?
Well, if the Senate Judiciary Committee would get to the truth and seek the corroboration, we probably would have talked to those
Scott,
2 witnesses.
Even you can't defend this Avenatti character at this point. I mean, I can stop digging on him. Stop digging on him.
Isn't it interesting, though, that Scott will come out and say, we need the Constitution and he's innocent until proven guilty.
Exactly.
Though for Republicans, we're guilty until proven innocent.
No, I don't believe that either. But I do believe Avenatti has clients who have made accusations against the president. They've got corroboration.
They had no
and they're listening.
I mean, we can't relitigate Kavanaugh, but if they had
I'm talking about Stormy Daniels and Swetnick and others. When I say Swetnick, what I mean is they never did get corroboration because the committee never went for corroboration.
My God, if you're defending Julie Swetnick, the woman is literally
not defending her. I'm just reporting.
Is a nightmare. It is completely outrageous and false. And Kavanaugh has 2 words: life tenure. All right. Let's talk about this, though. Where does this go for the Democrats? Because they always complain, well, Republicans are willing to sell their souls for Trump, and they're believing these things they didn't used to believe. And for Trump, I always believed in his views on trade and immigration, so it doesn't apply to me, but they say that. But what about this? This guy is a piece of work, whether this is true or not. I'd take all this allegation from yesterday off the table, just his other behavior and all the other stuff he's been through and done.
So first, I think the guy's a scumbag. The 3 of us are lawyers. He gives lawyers a bad name. That's why I don't say I'm a lawyer. I'm a prosecutor because we have such a bad reputation. But, I mean, here you have a guy. He's an attractive man. He's well-spoken. And you have a guy like that who's willing to be a pit bull against Donald Trump, and you'll have every liberal network put him on TV to bash the president, take down down his judicial or his Supreme Court nominee. And when this story comes out, it is crickets. I thought it was fascinating what you played in the angle, which is you have CNN talking briefly about this story and back to Russia. Back to Russia. It's like a Russia story.
4 seconds. 4 seconds. Yeah. No, come on. I mean, we all have to admit, but that was just so obvious. Like Anderson was like, let's get off this story like now, okay? We've elevated him for months. Now we can't report on this. All right, these are Iowa voters, guys, who are reacting to a possible Michael Avenatti run for the presidency, and they actually seem pretty excited. Let's watch.
You potentially vote for Stormy Daniels' lawyer, Michael Avenatti?
I probably would, yeah. I'm going with Avenatti. Avenatti. I would lean that way.
Towards Avenatti?
Yes.
That was in August. I don't think he'll be doing those interviews anytime soon. No.
Yeah, maybe not. But politics and elections are about who you like. And voters vote for who they like regardless of their policies. He's an attractive candidate. He's got no political background or record, don't get me wrong. And I'm not sure he could make it through the Democratic primaries with so many other Democrats running. But it's an interesting story, but I don't think it has a lot of depth and substance to it.
Would you ever fail to pay your law partner like millions of dollars that your law partner is owed on a case? The judge ruled a $10 million verdict against Avenatti, cheating his law partner.
He's got baggage.
That's like cheating at golf times 100.
Would you ever vote for someone who's been accused of groping 20 women? Yes. GOP voted for Donald Trump. He's accused of lying. He's accused of lying on his taxes. You still voted for, not you, but the GOP voted for him. So why not Avenatti? I'm not a big fan of Avenatti, but Donald Trump's proven that anybody can get elected.
Donald Trump had an agenda. Michael Avenatti is only anti-Trump, and that was the message of the Democrat Party, which is going to be Nancy Pelosi as well in the new Congress. Listen, this is all they run on, right? Is I'm anti-Trump.
This is a hard argument I'm making tonight.
It's an anti-Trump movement, and that's why people he hates Trump and he gets great airtime. And
well, it worked.
He could run for president.
It worked for some of these House seats. The Democrats took it for some of the House seats, and maybe they think they can win the presidency with it. And I don't think you've heard the last of Michael Avenatti. And I said innocent until proven guilty last night, and I said you can't believe someone just because they make an accusation, even though he didn't give that same courtesy to the other folks.
He was probably set up anyway. Don't say it.
Marion Barry line. Okay, one final thing. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has said that she can't afford an apartment, Sean Duffy, in D.C. I don't know what the congressional salary is. You probably know. What is it, 150 grand, something like that?
It's 174.
But she can't afford an apartment.
No, what's unique, though, is when I ran for Congress, I went 7 months without a salary. I had 6 kids, and I said, hey, I've struggled to pay my bills. And the left went wild, struggling, Sean Duffy. And now Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says she can't afford an apartment. It's like, oh, she's just a poor middle-class working girl from the Bronx. The coverage of her is just outrageous.
It is like this fawning.
Poor young Duffy and how they
But I have a question, guys. But how many people had much money when they were there? I mean, you go to Craigslist, you have to live with a bunch of people like everybody else.
But also when you run for Congress, it's expensive. And if you don't work and you have 6 kids and you take 7 months off and your wife doesn't work as well. Here, I mean, listen, I had 6 kids and she had 6 pairs of shoes and had to get the 7th to
Okay, but let's be honest, though, Scott. Let's be honest, because Sean earned a lot of money with that log sawing thing that you did. I mean, the lumberjack sports. You won a lot of big prize money, okay? And
D.C. is an expensive town. We have stories of congressmen, and I think maybe one senator sleeping in their office because they couldn't afford 2 places. So what I don't understand about the media is what's the angle in making a big deal out of your challenge or her challenge? What does that mean? What do you want the readers to see?
Because the median income in the United States is like $51,000, and that's with 3 or 2 or 3 kids.
But she hadn't started yet. She hadn't started her job yet.
This is before you start the job, right? Mine was before I started the job as well. And listen, I can't afford a nice little flower like that either.
Oh, my goodness, an attack on the Democrats.
All it is it's a version of, well, I had to walk to school 5 miles. And it's a version, like, I only had one bathroom. How many bathrooms do you have growing up?
2.
How many do you have?
2.
11 kids.
1. I had 1 bathroom.
11 kids.
People.
I had 11. And look how you've done now. Yeah, look how well you're doing now.
6 people in the house and 1 bathroom, and we all survived somehow. All right, guys, thank you so much. And what could possibly be controversial about President Trump posthumously awarding Elvis Presley the Medal of Freedom? Wait till you see the message the Washington Post says this sends. Stay there. This one's ridiculous. But only a white man could become the king. Ridiculous? Well, how unhinged have they actually become? Going after Elvis. Joining me now on set to discuss this, co-chair of Project 21, Horace Cooper, and liberal analyst Jonathan Harris. Jonathan, Elvis is just cool, okay? Like, I didn't like the 1972 Elvis as much, but
Right.
that Elvis is just cool.
figure.
And he embraced black music. He wasn't trying to hide black music. But the Washington Post, really? This is what you're going at here?
I'm personally not a huge fan of Elvis. It might be a generational thing, but I'm not a huge fan of Elvis myself. But I think it's just the optics look weird. It's like, of all the people that you could have picked, you're going to pick someone who many people at least feel, to some extent or another, appropriated black music because it wouldn't be embraced by black artists, that it was embraced by Southern white America because a white artist was doing essentially black music. It's like, why would you pick someone like that in 2018 with all of the racial division that he's caused and was, he inherited as much as he caused, and pick someone like that? Why? Why would you even bother?
Was Elvis a racist, do you think?
No, I don't think Elvis is a racist, but I think the optics of what he represented.
So why does it send a message if he's
because the optics of what Elvis represented was racism. It was, we'll take. No, listen.
Oh my
because
God.
he's like, we'll take the South was, we'll take black music as long as it's packaged in a white guy. They wouldn't take it from the people who.
I think that was a fact of a changing American society, and I think you could probably make the argument that without Elvis, you wouldn't have had other musicians like down the road go to Al Green, or even some of the gospel singers who went back even pre-Elvis became more popular post-Elvis because of the rise of that type of music. I think it brought a lot of people into the spotlight who might not have gotten into the spotlight without that kind of meteoric rise that he had. Yeah. But Horace, I mean, I do think this is actually now comedic, that we are talking about Elvis and the fact that this sends a racist message somehow. It's like is this another dog whistle, Horace?
The left has just jumped the shark. Here's a
that saying has jumped the shark, but that's okay.
This individual was so accomplished. He sold albums that blacks, whites, browns, America enjoyed, America celebrated. He was America's hero, and absolutely he ought to be. And it's a real shame that people would look at his achievement and say, we want to hold that back because we think this is somehow a secret dog whistle for a racist agenda.
Well, I can see if the president had picked Michael Jackson, who is called the king of pop,
He's
remember?
the king of music. I was just thinking, like, Donald Trump and Michael Jackson were very close. Like, he could have picked somebody like that, philanthropist, not, no racial controversy. Like,
why didn't Barack Obama pick him?
But you're picking, like, Elvis?
Why didn't Obama pick Michael Jackson?
I mean, there's a question about that, but I'm like, why are you picking Elvis? I mean, he's been dead for at least a couple minutes now. I mean, why are you picking Elvis right now?
There are a lot of people they pick who are legends, and I mean, he was the most influential. I think anyone can really argue the most influential person at the time in American music, and it was music that was threatening to the new generation, obviously. People thought it was a threat. They didn't like it. They didn't like he moved. So I think you can argue as a liberal that Elvis was really what ushered in, obviously, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, all the way down to the Who. I mean, Little Richard, those guys were fabulous. They loved Elvis. Little Richard loved Elvis. Right. I think you could talk to him today. Still talk about it.
Millions of Americans go to Graceland. I mean, this is just a ridiculous
Have you guys ever been to Graceland?
I have been to Graceland.
I've never been. I'd like to go.
It's a great experience.
Let's all go together. Would you film it? Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be my first time.
The point about it is to bring up him as a divider when he actually united Americans with music.
Okay.
I'm going to turn you into Elvis fan. Okay, I'm going to turn you into Elvis fan, and you're going to turn me into, who's your favorite?
Michael Jackson, actually. I love
I love Michael Jackson.
Oh, man,
okay, you're going to understand that. But wait, I'm going to turn you on to Elvis.
If you can do that, that'll be
okay. You're going to like Elvis by the end. When I play you the old gospel Elvis, you'll like that.
Hula never did it for me.
Elvis, you'll love it. Okay, Nancy Pelosi, she has been thrilled with one figure that also maybe not be as uniting as Elvis was, and this is Al Sharpton. Let's watch.
Thank you for helping take back America. People all over the place are calling me, writing on the airports here, there. Thank you for saving America. I give those thanks to you. Thank you for saving America. Reverend Sharpton, thank you for saving America.
I think she said that 4 times in one clip. She was at the National Action Network Legislative Policy Conference. It's a civil rights organization founded by Sharpton. Did Al Sharpton save America, Jonathan?
I may have missed that memo. I mean, not that I'm aware of.
We need to check on Nancy at this point. I'm not quite sure
He saved America from racial harmony.
But no. What I will say, no. He has done a lot. There's a lot of things he's done that are problematic. But he's also done a lot
problematic.
You're a Trump supporter. We're not going to get into that one, are we? No, but he's done a lot of things that are problematic. But I think most people, what Nancy Pelosi was referring to, he's done a lot to eradicate racism and to take on people who have been racist. And I think that's
we have to stop racism by causing racism.
All right, we're going to be going to vaping right now. I wish you guys could stay for this segment, but we actually have a millennial vaping fanatic facing off with a doctor warning against it. Find out what's going on next. Teens are using them in these increasing numbers.
Well, look, I'm 22 years old, so I'm using them legally, and honestly, they're just cool. Like, they're cool. You rip them. There's nothing cooler than blowing a fat cloud like that. They call me the Colossus of Cloud. It helps my swag. It helps my drip. I just love walking around. It's really good for getting chicks, too. So, honestly, I started about a year ago, and I haven't looked back since.
I have a question. You use your cell phone quite a bit?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Okay, so why don't you rig it up to your phone, and that way you won't have like the actual calories burned by grabbing your phone, so you can vape and kind of check email and text at the same time. You should have it like right off the side. Okay, that'll be your invention. I'm giving it to you, so you can develop it.
I'd vape like this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but you don't
blow.
have to keep switching devices. All right, humor aside, doctor, what should we know about the use of these e-cigarettes, vaping? Wildly popular. Parents don't really know when their kids are doing it. Like, what's a big deal? It's not like a cigarette, right?
Well, it can be just as harmful as cigarettes. Smoking causes more deaths than alcohol, drugs, guns, and car accidents combined. The nicotine in cigarettes and in vaping products such as the Juul is highly addictive, and when it comes to children, it can cause brain developmental abnormalities in kids. It can cause concentration problems, memory problems, problems with decision making, anxiety, depression. So it really can have a significant toll on children, and it's really important that we educate parents and educate children and students just to stay away from smoking.
All right, but the argument from the big lobbying organizations pushing vaping is that it's not that you don't get the tar, right, in your lungs that you get from a regular cigarette. It doesn't matter,
but you are inhaling propylene glycol, formaldehyde, traces of metals and chemicals which can cause upper respiratory tract infections, asthma flare-ups, COPD, which can allow you to have trouble breathing beyond oxygen tanks and put some people in the emergency room. Poor Tommy over there is gasping for air and coughing.
Tommy, you don't seem to be bothered at all by formaldehyde or any of the things that you take in. You love it, and look at how Tommy smokes. Look at how he looks. He looks fantastic after all this.
Right, but 10, 20 years from now, he's going to have trouble breathing. He may develop chronic bronchitis, and I'm here for you, Tommy, if you ever decide you want to quit.
Hey, Tommy, did you smoke cigarettes before, and was this your way to get off, or no?
No cigarettes. Cigarettes are bad for you. I would never do anything that's bad for your lungs or anything. I just stick to Juul.
But
have you heard of wet lungs? What that is?
No. So what is that?
Wet lungs, doctor, explain it to us, because now we're finding a lot of Juul users developing this syndrome called wet lungs.
Sure. It's also known as popcorn lung, which can cause scarring and inflammation in your lungs. And actually, people who start off using juuling or vaping products, that has been considered to be a gateway drug, and can lead people to actually start smoking real cigarettes, and that is a concern.
No, popcorn's delicious. I'm not worried about that.
So what flavor do you use, Tommy?
I usually go mango. Mango's my go-to, but I'll blow whatever's put in front of me.
Yeah, but they're regulating that now. The flavors are gone, right? They're going to be, you're going to take you're going to have to just go menthol. You should just go full-on menthol cigarettes.
The man can't stop me. They can't stop me.
That's the other thing, Laura, is that they're targeting these cigarettes to children. You know, mango,
kids.
Hawaiian punch.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Criminal.
The tutti frutti, the cotton candy. All right, guys, we're gonna check in with Tommy Smokes in about 6 years and see how he's doing. But this was a fun segment. Stay there.